Exactly 6 o'clock. We will call the January 29th Master Plan Steering Committee to order at 6 PM. Scott, could you, I jumped the gun.
I think I got it. It's recording here, it just hasn't shown up here yet, so. And there we are.
Awesome. And do you want to give me a roll call, Scott?
I do. In attendance this evening, we have Steve Whitman, Crystal Kidd, Eric Halverson, Eric Hoffman, Pat Wood, Rob Mora, Jerry Dion, John McCardle, and my dear, dear friend, Tyler Carmichael. I'm Scott, I'll be taking minutes tonight.
I want the minutes to reflect that.
Yes,
Please do.
So, speaking of minutes, next on our agenda is acceptance of minutes from our previous meeting. Does anybody have any questions, comments, concerns? Yes, sir.
The roll call didn't include Charlie
Okay.
and Claire.
Oh, do you have a list of notes or corrections that you have there?
Well, not corrections, they're just questions.
Oh,
And the other item I had was the consultants had briefly discussed projects in Dover, if you recall,
Yeah,
as increased housing opportunities, and I'm not sure if that included also, should be in the, keep people coming back from UNH or other schools to stay in the, I don't know if that included that. I know it's part of our discussion, briefly, so I don't know if you want to have that added in there or not, but you want these things?
yeah, if you actually,
I can't add Charlie because he did miss the initial roll call from the last one, say with Gary, so those are
601.
Okay.
correct.
Okay.
But the other one I can add, the Dover section, I'll go back and look at that
Yeah.
tomorrow, yeah?
Let me give that to you.
Excellent. Thank you.
so with that, other than those corrections, anybody else have any questions, comments, concerns concerning those minutes? Entertain a motion to accept with those corrections.
So moved.
I got a motion, I got a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, everybody voted in favor. Charlie, did you vote in favor or abstain, or?
I'm always in favor, yes. I'm sorry I didn't get my hand up. Yes, sir.
Thank you. All right, with that, I, oh, look at the
We
minute.
have one more arriving member.
Oh,
Hello.
hello.
Hi, everybody.
Good, I'm at the
Same
last
here,
one.
Chair.
Thank you.
I can get up and leave and come back if you want.
with that, Steve, I'm gonna turn right over to you.
All right, so we have quite a bit we want to share with you tonight, and we want to hear from you on tonight. We have four things, and I'll give you the high-level overview, and then we'll jump into the first item. So you may have received by email a very lengthy document. I see it in front of Pat and some others. The existing conditions report. So we want to give you, I want to walk you through kind of what we did, what's there, and then stop talking, and we'll have a discussion about that. And then we'll talk about additional time for review that we may want to have as a group before we share it more broadly. The other thing we want to do tonight is share some land use analysis that Eric and his team completed. Rob and Tyler have had a preview. It's pretty exciting. We decided to share the first part with you tonight and give you a chance to ask questions and give us feedback. And then Eric has an optional but encouraged homework assignment between now and the next meeting that we think will help part two. It'll help you be prepared to guide us in part two and have a more informed discussion for the master plan. Crystal then wants to kind of walk through the outreach planning that we've set up with the staff for the next couple months. Because we're going to be transitioning from one phase to another of the project with your support over the next couple meetings. And we'll start to have enough background information that we'll be able to start to plan the outreach and the deeper engagement with the community that we've been looking forward to. And so she's just going to go over at a high level kind of the types of things we're thinking about and a couple questions that she has. And then the fourth and last thing will be to look ahead, make sure we have the right meeting date for February. And if we want to make any changes, make those changes. And then it should be clear. And we'll have all that done and you out of here before 8 o'clock.
Perfect.
That made you happy, didn't it?
That made me very happy.
If anything I've missed that you were hoping to cover tonight? All right, so the existing conditions report, this is what we've been talking about since like the first meeting in the fall. Because this master plan update is primarily focused on these 5 sections, we did a deeper dive in each of the 5 sections. So it's interesting, when we do an existing conditions report like this for a full master plan, maybe twice as many sections, often they're about this long. And Eric, you can feel free to speak to some of you worked on a lot of these, so you may have additional insight you want to share on that. But we wanted to make sure, because there had been comments from the committee, from the staff, and from the bigger group of land use boards, that maybe some of the previous master plans didn't go deep enough, didn't have enough background information, that we started off with that. And we took as wide a look as we could at anything that was available, readily available, that could inform land use decisions, that could inform master plan type, big picture, what is Laconia, where is Laconia heading, discussions that we want to have with the public. So this is a draft. You're the first group to receive it. We want to go through it and answer questions you have. If you have had a chance to review it in the week or so that you've had it, you'll see that the basically the way it's set up is there's a very brief introduction of 2 pages, and then each of the land use sections, the profiles as we call them, start off with just like a very colorful 2-page, it could be like a tear sheet. For most people, that'd be all they would read, is that 2 pages. It gives them a high-level snapshot of what's happening related to land use or the economy, or the other 3 topics. We decided that it was important to then follow it, because this is ultimately going to become the appendix of your master plan if we're successful. So this is the stuff that people can go, and if they need to pull data for grant applications or for implementation effort that's underway, they can go and they can pull out existing land use data and other things. But it's not what tells a compelling story about why a business, a developer, a resident should stay in or come to Laconia to do business. We want the master plan to really tell that compelling story about who Laconia is and where you're headed forward together. So that's kind of what we did and the purpose of this document. Crystal or Eric, anything I missed as far as like high-level overview? I know the staff had a chance to look at it before we met, but I know, Tyler, you had said you were still looking through and trying to find some of the little things, so there may be still staff changes that we'd like to make as well. If you've gone through and you have like grammatical stuff, we don't need to go into that detail tonight, but we'll take them, absolutely. It would be more if there are questions or comments you have that you want the other members of the group to weigh in on, or we got wrong or are missing. Looks like Pat has something.
Would it make sense for us, if we have those things, send them to you or Tyler?
Yes. So I was going to get into that. In our discussion, what we had with Steve and Crystal is we were going to have the focal point be Tyler.
Okay.
So if there was corrections or something we needed changed or whatever, to send just all of those corrections to Tyler. Then Tyler will compile those and send an email on a regular basis to Steve and Crystal
Right,
on the
and
updates.
maybe copy us on that, so we all know what other people are suggesting as well.
Yep, we can absolutely do that as well.
Perfect, okay.
We can absolutely do that.
And the goal, typically, even with your edits, even if we had a couple rounds of edits, we'll keep it a draft until the end, because there will be things that we'll discover along the way. There may be new data that comes up that you decide you want included.
Yeah, I was just going to point out, too, we did send it out digitally to the board members, but because it was such a large document, we didn't just automatically print it out. But if you would like a hard copy, we can certainly provide those, as some people have asked for one, so
Yep.
we can do that.
When was it emailed?
About a week ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
I believe it came from Rod.
It came from
Yeah.
me.
yeah, I think it was last week, the middle of last week, something like that.
I guess anyone who did have a chance to look at it, that had any general feedback or specific feedback, we'd like to spend a little time tonight on that, if there is some. Yeah, please.
So I know when we initially talked about it, I was saying that we need some specific housing data. There certainly was a lot of specific housing data, so thank you for that.
You can thank Eric, he's right next to you.
Thank you. As I was looking through it, a lot of questions were coming to my mind, and it was usually answered 2 graphs later, because he included so many graphs that anything I was thinking about was in there.
Good.
Except for one.
Okay.
I was wondering how the percentage of rental versus owner properties have changed over the last 5-10 years?
So actual, like, buildings and properties, not
Like-
households?
I think it's mentioned somewhere in there, like the current percentage of rental properties versus ownership, and I
Yep.
was just wondering,
Or
how has
time
that changed?
series.
Right.
Okay, yeah,
What did that look like 5 years ago? What did that look like 10
yeah,
years
that's
ago?
easy,
Right.
yep.
That's a really good,
I had another question. I think John and I both had this question. I mean, the Housing Authority wasn't referred to in here at all, and I'm wondering if you've talked to anyone at the Housing Authority to get some of their feedback. I think that would be helpful to have that information in here as well.
Anything in particular that you're hoping we'd ask them for or include?
Well, I think they have a lot of data that they've already collected.
Sure.
And it might be helpful to talk to them and what their ideas might be to meet some of the shortfall in the affordable housing, well, I mean,
Deeply.
because they can only deal with the really lower income people, but that's where there's a large demand, as you're noting here. So I think that would be very helpful.
Right, yeah.
Kathy Bowler is the executive director.
Kathy Bowler?
Yeah, BOWLER at the Housing Authority.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A couple of things?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, we're
You're
ready.
not gonna take it, you're not gonna go through the document, just get the stuff out on the floor now.
Yeah, just throw it out.
Okay, there's a 2,700 seasonal vacancies. How is this determined?
That's from census data. So within the US Census data, they provide a vacancy number, an overall vacancy number, and then categories of vacancy within that. One of the categories within their vacancy is seasonal second homes. So that's what we used for that particular chart.
Okay. There was a statistic on rent increases since 2019, increasing by 44%. Do we know how that tracks with the rest of other things, costs going up or whatever? Was the cost of rent significantly higher than the,
CPI, for example.
yeah, do we know?
I didn't look at that, but we could check that.
I mean,
Yeah.
it's one thing to point out a statistic that rents have gone up by 44%, but if the rest of items have gone up by 40%, that's really not way out of line.
Sure.
It doesn't make the pain any
Right,
less,
yeah.
I get that.
Puts it in perspective.
But it puts it in perspective,
Yep.
correct.
And I wonder, how long, can I add, John, to that?
Anything you want.
Well, no, I'll just, well, not anything, but I'll be careful. Would you also, I'm not sure, I mean, there was some income data in here, but maybe it would be helpful to have that comparison as well, if there's any comparison on income
To inflation.
information. Right.
Yep.
For the same period, so there's a.
Yeah, back to you.
There's a statistic of 25% of the residents have bachelor's degrees. Does that include retirees that are no longer in the workforce? Or is that just a general statistic?
So that should be a general statistic of any adult over the age of 25. Yep. And
Because
that's
it's
also
captured
from
in the census.
Yep, and it's
Yeah.
also
Captured
in
in
the
the census
census.
data.
Yep,
Yeah.
Okay.
yep.
Under the Department of Public Works, there's a list of bridges. And it looks like are they all listed as, are they red listed? All of those bridges?
That's probably in transportation.
Page
right?
92?
Yeah. What page was it again?
92?
92?
So I'm gonna also back you up on that. So interestingly enough, the former DPW director works in my office now, and he had some corrections. He's kind of compiling those right now, so we should have some traffic updates for some of the roads.
Do you think that it appears that more are red listed in this list than they really are?
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
So
It's-
but
Is that how it looked to you as well?
Yeah, I'm not driving.
but Wes said he'd get that data to us, so we should have that.
I think part of it's the way they're displayed too. I think it's actually just 4, right? I don't know if it's in the summary sheet. Because I think it's a sub-bullet underneath a bridge number.
Okay, it was just confusing to me that it looked like,
Yeah, 4 bridges on page 73 are red listed. But I think because they're bolded, even though they're listed below the bridge number, it makes it look like the following 13 bridges are red listed.
that's what, to me, that's what I'm.
We'll fix that, John.
Getting kind of nervous.
Okay, yeah.
We can clarify.
And I guess the last thing that I would ask is, did the police department indicate whether or not they were gonna be anticipating any increase in sworn officers? And he indicated, and I feel, I've been there when they say that the locker rooms are maxed out, I understand that.
Yeah.
I've been through that situation. The police station itself appears to be adequate for what they anticipate, but it doesn't say whether or not they'd be looking at hiring, which would add into what the community would need to do going forward.
Yep.
To accommodate that.
I don't remember I don't remember the chief saying anything about hiring. What we did talk about with both police and fire would be the impact of future development on staffing needs. So I think there was I'd have to go back and check my interview notes, but I think there was a sense from the police department that things were okay with sort of the level that call volume and things like that today. But for example, if State Hospital goes through as is planned, that could potentially have an impact on public safety and services. So that's certainly top of mind for several department heads that I spoke with.
Did they get the report on the state school property?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was somewhere in that state school report that
So they
that listed how many officers they thought they would need to support
Right.
that.
They actually, when the Pillsbury Group did they did an analysis as well, on what the needs of the city would be, and they forecasted for an increase in firefighters.
Fires and police,
And police as well.
right. as
And
well
they
as-
also evaluated the impact of that entire project to the overall school system.
Right.
I'm just gonna go back, so we did do interviews with every department head, kind of going over everything, and it kind of brought to light some things that we should really think about. And one of those things was really a matrices to how we're evaluating staff levels throughout the city for each department. That was brought up with every department head of, what's the impact, but there was no metrics for how do you justify
Right.
what these are. And I think that was probably more of the city has nothing to measure that. That's something the project manager is evaluating along with as part of his duties in developing his strategic plan for the city and making sure that fall in line with CIP and the budgeting process. So we're working on that right now. And that was brought out during all of these interviews, and we're like, oh, wow, we should really evaluate that. So
That's good.
we're working on that.
Seems like for the fire department, what they do is they look at how much overtime they spend, that gives them some ideas to what they need for full-time personnel. At least sort of how it sounds like from the city council meetings. But
It does sound that way. Yeah.
John, did you have any others?
No, I'm more editorial, and I think I'll put those into an email to Tyler to memorialize
That's fine.
those and send them on.
Okay.
would you do us a favor? Could you put your questions in an email and send them to Tyler so we could all get those too?
Yes.
Because they're great questions.
Yes, I will.
What we can do is, if you have specific questions or anything you want to share, just send it to Tyler, and we'll blast it out to the whole committee, and we'll CC all of them on there, so we can all be on the same
Yeah,
page.
I
And
think that's great.
I mean, I'm glad you're here in person. It's nice when this stuff comes up, especially because there were a lot of housing-specific thoughts and additions. But everything that's been shared tonight is easily doable. There may be other things that others haven't shared yet tonight that you want to share, or that we can go over the first part of the next meeting. But we want to make sure that it's not light reading. It's not what you want to sit back by the fire and just go through page by page. But we want to make sure at least it's going in the right direction, it's a resource, and that if we're pulling facts from here to tell a story, to engage the public, that you feel confident in what we're using. All right?
Awesome.
All right?
Yeah, well, there will be more questions,
That's
obviously,
fair.
right?
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. we shouldn't get through it in one 15-minute conversation, so.
I have a lot of commentary about, not so much about the report, but the data that the report presents that we should probably discuss, but I'm not sure what the time to do that is.
Well, that,
I think spending a few minutes on that now would be helpful, just to hear what you're all thinking, especially as a lead into what you're about to hear from Eric, so I wouldn't hold off.
Okay, I guess, first of all, looking through all that, I think, maybe it's just the way my brain works, but we need to identify what numbers in there, I guess, we feel like need to change, and then what out of those can be changed by either policy or planning, right? Because if things don't fall into either of those categories, we don't really need to think about it. I mean, some of these things are just driven by market forces we have no control over. You know, it's just a snapshot of things that have happened, not necessarily telling us where we need to go. We need to figure out what numbers in there we want to see changed and how do we do it, right?
Agreed.
that's a really tough question.
Right, just off the top of my head, that's what we're doing, I guess. There's not a lot of commercial zoning in the city. We need to maybe think about identifying where future commercial zoning growth happens.
I just, thank you for bringing that up. Tyler and I, when we had our initial conversation with them, we were like, wow, 4%? That's,
What's the percentage you said?
4%.
I thought it was less than that.
Yeah, I think the commercial
Well,
is even less than that.
Commercial and industrial, I think, is grouped together for
Okay.
about 4%.
Does that
Yeah.
include commercial residential?
No.
So what's-
You're talking about the CR district, right? Out there in the
No, I'm
Weirs?
talking about, like where I live. That's, I've been told.
Oh,
that's-
yeah, in the UC
that's
district?
Commercial,
Yeah.
commercial residential. So you're talking about just plain commercial, but what about commercial residential, where you can put up commercial entities in a quote, residential area too? What's the percentage of that?
I was gonna say, Eric, and you can correct me if I'm mistaken on this, but I thought I read that the city is zoned a little under 10% to allow for commercial use, but only about 4% is actually being, like, of the parcels are being utilized
Gotcha.
for commercial use. So, and like, for example, Charlie, you would be in that 10% because you're zoned for commercial, but you're not in that 4% because you're using it for residential.
Okay, so it's not that we don't have the available space for commercial, it's just that it's not all being utilized for whatever reason. So that sounds better than
Does sound better.
4% versus 10%. That's a big difference.
Right. But, you know, one thing we may want to look at through this process is of land that is zoned to support commercial or to allow commercial or industrial, where there is vacant land that could be built on, like how developable is that land? Is it wetlands? Is it ledge? Is it, you know, or is it a nice flat piece of property? Because some of the topographical or environmental challenges or a lack of maybe infrastructure connections could be a reason why maybe some of that's not
It
developed
doesn't
yet.
seem to be a problem anymore. Does it, Rob?
So, on that topic, I was thinking, the way our zones are described, specifically RR1 and RR2, you know, it seems to hinge those zones on the availability of utilities. And I feel like maybe we should get away from that, and those zones should be just based on their rural character and not the availability of utilities, because utilities will now be available in those zones, right?
Right, because you're saying that if somebody really wants it, they're gonna get the utilities.
I just don't think it's a useful parameter for defining why we have things zoned the way we do anymore, right? It probably was when it was written, but I don't think it is now.
People don't seem to overcome that stuff now.
I think, I was just gonna say, sorry, I was just gonna say that I think you're referencing this past, what was it, Tuesday's meeting, about there is an area of the city that is zoned RR1 and RR2 that now has both utilities.
Yep,
So
you
does
got
it
it.
make sense to really have that still be zoned that way?
I
will
think it makes sense to have it zoned that way. I'm not sure it makes sense for the zone to refer to the availability of utilities.
That's fair, that's fair.
Only 4% of the land in the city is marked for conservation. I don't know if we want to take a look at maybe, are there areas of the city that we should think about including for conservation to preserve the rural character of some of our neighborhoods, for example. It really seems like one of the stumbling blocks is job opportunities and the type of jobs. And I guess as part of the master planning process, we should really look at how do we encourage change? How do we encourage higher paying jobs or better jobs? It seems like the highest need is affordable housing for 2 people. It seems like that's preventing people from downsizing. It's preventing people from moving into the area. It's preventing employers from finding people to work for them. So I think 2-bedroom affordable housing is really the biggest need from what I saw. There's nothing in there about parking. I know Charlie loves it when I bring up that I feel we have a parking situation in town, but just throwing it out there.
Absolutely.
There was some parking.
I demand it right in front of where I'm going.
I thought there were.
Did Jason touch on parking, Steve, and transportation?
Yeah, I think Crystal's going to
Actually,
now.
Eric, but if you think about parking, I would be more concerned about residential parking. So,
That's a concern too,
that,
especially downtown.
the commercial thing, other than people crying about not being able to, and they're always the locals, not being able to park right in front of where they wanna go in.
Yes.
I feel the real problem is for residents in the downtown core, or Weirs Beach or wherever, that because of our parking restrictions, especially in the wintertime about no overnight parking,
Yes.
that is a real problem for people, and I can see where if somebody did wanna live in an apartment or a condo around here, and they said, well, parking's on you, kid, good luck, that's a real detriment.
I feel like I brought that up several times at city council, that if we're gonna try to encourage development of apartments downtown and encourage people to move in, we have to deal with this parking situation.
Right,
Whether it's with the permit system we just came out with, or somehow residents need to be able to park overnight. I mean,
somewhere within walking distance.
Right, yeah. Like the no overnight parking,
Just on the street.
it kind of
It's
blows
tough.
my mind, yeah.
Yeah, it's tough, and I understand the need for that, we all do, I think.
It's also one of, not every topic is going to be fully answered in the existing conditions report, because then we'd be done. But if parking is one of those issues, it could become a focus of questions we ask the public, especially as we go out to these 3 different distinct areas of the city. We might get different responses for those areas. And we can also share the limitations that the city has and what you can require of a developer, and then the different tools, the different approaches, and see what people like.
That's a really good point. I would be curious in like a survey to see
Okay.
what kind of answers you get about parking, because it's not just about me parking in front of the coffee shop.
I didn't think we'd get to that again by 6:30.
Who's the survey gonna be given to?
Everybody. There's
Everybody.
nobody it won't be given to.
Make sure you ask if they're local or not. I'm serious.
Yeah, we usually, when we get to that phase of the project, we usually want to collect demographic information from people attending, because you'll get people who work in the city and would like to live here but don't currently live here who will participate. And then the online version the same. We want to know who's using it, so we can ask that. But yeah, there'll be nobody excluded from providing feedback as many times as they want to show up. They can come to all 3 of the meetings. They can go online. We want it all.
It's so funny when you mention the coffee shop, because, I've got a business, I depend on people with vehicles, and I usually say to me, how far'd you park? Or, when they're bringing out stuff, where'd you park? Oh, I'm just down the street, I'm just around the corner.
Yeah.
So, I'd love to see those surveys versus, God damn it, I couldn't, my coffee's gonna get cold, I gotta walk up the block, I
That's
don't
why
know.
I don't come in your store that often, because I can't park right in front of it.
Yeah, so but I would just wonder if
Nice excuse,
if the responses at a coffee shop would be different than a retail store.
Maybe.
Where, people are planning to go and shop and they're not in a big rush to get out back to the car with their coffee. Just curious.
It's also really time of day dependent. I mean, you go downtown at 10:30 a.m., I guarantee you will think there's a parking problem.
You will or will not?
You will. The lot's full, all the spaces are full.
Oh, my God. It's the end of the world.
What am I supposed to walk from here?
I have no problem finding parking any time of the day.
Yeah, we've already been around this room. It's,
Read the minutes.
Other commentary, that was all super helpful. other commentary, general commentary on existing conditions?
I just have a question, I guess, to Eric on his comments about, keeping the RR1 and RR2 districts, but we need more affordable housing. Well, where are we gonna put that housing?
Out there.
Well, I think we
I mean,
need,
that's,
I think that's part of what we need to be discussing here
it
as
is
we
part
go
of what
on
we
with
need to be
this.
discussing, because I think, you know, zoning is how we pick that, right? Like, how our zones are laid out is how we determine what each area is supposed to be, right? So, I think we've discussed all along that, along with this, we need to update our zoning, and
Well,
so I agree.
the analysis says we need 1,800 new house, 1,810 houses by 2040 or something like that. And the state school property, they're talking a couple thousand.
Yeah, about 2,100
Housing units,
housing units.
not necessarily single-family homes or apartments or whatever.
The whole mix.
But the 1,800 is based on what we have right now. If we add another 2,100, what's the demand going to be beyond that? I mean,
Does it go up or down? I guess it depends on what they build.
well, that's right.
That's the kicker.
Yeah.
And that comes down to the developer. You know, it's a shame, but,
So we don't have to focus on the things they
No.
want to build, because
Right.
they're gonna build them. We need to focus on the things that they don't seem to want to build and how to get to them to build them, right?
It depends on what it is, right, right. Okay, sorry.
Just has to be economically feasible.
well, yeah.
Have we given any thought to mixed-use development and mixed-use zoning? You know, 50 or 60 years ago, neighborhoods were a homogeny of single families, apartments, and small businesses, neighborhood stores and things like that. And over the past 50 years, we've said, nope, housing's here, retail's here, this is here. And you get pretty limited if you can only build housing over here.
We
And
have?
There might be, when you were
Well,
when you were a young type.
I'll refer to a commercial residential zone.
Doesn't
You can
performance
do all
zoning
of that
kinda handle
stuff.
some of that?
It does. Performance zoning encourages mixed-use development.
Right.
But-
Also, I mean, there's village zoning as well. I mean, it's the same type of a thing. So,
But
yeah, there are
performance-
ways to do it, but we need to talk about it.
And Gary, you remember over by the junior high school, you go Jackson Street there, if you walk along there, you took the right, wherever that big fire was, that big apartment, there was a convenience store right there.
There were convenience stores all over the place.
Right, I'm not so sure the reason they're gone, is it more because of the competition from other places, other stores or whatever?
Shopping trends change, no question, like the
But they
change
could
in
be built,
retail.
but they could build back in there if they wanted to.
Can they?
Of course they can, it's still commercial residential.
Do they need off-street parking?
You can park right in front of Walmart.
Yeah, you can park in front of, you can park right in front of
They're
the
terrible
the
sometimes.
place that used
You
to be.
can see the front door from 1,000 yards away, yes.
I will say, just to answer both of you, that yes, there are zones that permit mixed-use development, but there are also zones that don't. And I do believe that the RG district is one of the districts that ended up, where you saw a lot of those neighborhood stores, it limited what those mixed uses could be. And so that, to Counselor Hoffman's point, it's probably a good idea that through this process, or at the end of it, our next step should be to look at how our city is zoned, to see where should we
Oh,
be
no
promoting
doubt.
mixed use. And
No doubt
So-
about that.
but yes, in your zone, yeah, mixed use is permitted, so they're in the CR.
And we're actually gonna get you started thinking about that tonight.
I
It's
think
gonna be
one
one of the more fun and challenging things to do. Yeah.
of the other things we should look at is, and I'm not sure that was in the report, was how much empty space do we currently have unutilized in the city, right? Like how much of downtown is, vacant second, third, and fourth stories above commercial properties, right? And how do we encourage that to be developed into housing after we fix the parking situation?
Depends on the building, of course, too. Right.
I mean, I think about this building over here, I don't even know who owns it anymore, on Union Avenue.
Yeah.
But
Oh,
that,
the old factory
yeah, I mean,
across the river?
if I was a gazillionaire, that's a beautiful place for apartments. not million-dollar condos, but apartments right on the river. You know, somebody would have some really nice views there. You're walking downtown. Yeah, there's not much parking there, but again, that would come back to, you know, finding a place for residents downtown to park. But that's one building. You know, you look at Allen Rogers, what they did with that building. So it's kind of like on a smaller scale, but that place is just sitting there screaming for, not a factory, but, you know, residential.
Convert the ground floor to indoor parking.
You could do that to
That would
whatever.
increase your
I'm-
parking on the same footprint.
Yeah, I'm just saying, but we do have some places, not a lot, that I can think of.
Any other context people want to share? Anything we didn't touch on yet tonight? I want to keep my promise to Rob that we will get you out of here by 8. If not, then I wonder, because I think you're starting to think, like, what do we do with this information? How do we move forward? Which directions do we go? Like, this is why it's nice working with a group like this. Eric, do you want to plug yourself in and start sharing part 1? Sure. Cool. So I'm guessing, Scott, when he plugs in, they'll be able to see it on this screen here.
Yeah, it'll plug in, we'll see it on our input over here,
And then
we'll make
people
sure
in
it
the public
pops
will
up,
see it up
and then
there.
we'll,
If not,
Okay.
I'm
Yeah.
gonna zoom right
Great.
in on his feed.
Oh, cool.
yeah.
Alright.
Is it working? Don't see it on input 5
No,
yet.
I still see the back of your head on the camera.
Why is this difficult every single time?
What's that?
Question, I would ask.
What'd you say?
Why is this so difficult every single time we do it,
They had a new IT system.
Something happened.
right? Shouldn't IT like
Oh, did your
print instructions
Your computer-
for a 5-year-old and like
Yeah.
laminate them and put them up
Can see
there?
your
Like,
slides.
first plug this,
It's
to
presented
this.
to you.
It looks like this.
Oh, is it?
Set it up.
Right.
Look up on the screen.
Look at this.
Oh, wow, record time.
Tyler's on
There
it.
you go.
Okay, I had to change my
He's at
settings.
least an 8th grade level.
We got it all figured out.
Sweet. Thank you, sir. So, first of all, Steve, when we were sort of pitching this RFP, was kind enough to let me suggest some experimental things that we've been playing with in the office. And then secondly, Rob and Tyler said, yeah, let's try it here. So we're gonna share with you something that we've been working on that's a little bit of a different way to think about a comprehensive plan than certainly we've ever done before, but I think Laconia could be a great test case for this, and I'll share why. So we've been kicking around this idea of what's called a place-based analysis for a community, where instead of through a comp plan looking at the entirety of a city or a town, which obviously through the existing conditions we've already done, and we can add to that. But I thought Laconia would be a great test case because you have specific places within your city that are very unique, and they're unique to Laconia and special to Laconia, like Lakeport or the Weirs or downtown, or certainly in the future, you know, whatever happens with, say, the state school, that could be like another activity node or place or space within the town. And we've been working with so many communities lately, especially the last few years, who are searching for answers to constant budget challenges and overrides, or capital needs that they have, or how are we going to pay for this, or how are we going to pay for that. So we've been thinking about, you know, how do we integrate some of those financial challenges into our planning work to try to figure out, well, within a community, like what, from a development standpoint, like what actually drives value? And when you look at it at a place scale or a city scale, like where is that actual value, and like what is the value of that place? So typically a master plan is looking, as I said, at a much broader scale, but I think in Laconia, we have an opportunity to dive into maybe a couple of these places and try to figure out, like, are they functioning well today? Like, let's take downtown in the conversation we just had. Are they functioning well today? Are people happy with how it is today? Is it driving value for the city? And if it's not, what kinds of suggestions, strategies, recommendations can we make through the comprehensive plan that would boost that value and contribute more to the city than what it might be doing today? So at the place level, we've started to develop a way where we can look at land use and zoning, transportation systems and utility systems, the housing stock, the jobs and economic development, and certainly the city and school facilities and services, through this lens of place and through this lens of value, to then drive the strategies and actions to say, okay, what does the city actually want to enhance and how would you do it? And to the point about open space earlier, where might you not want to do it, and you might actually want to preserve the current character of that space or the value of that space. The way we've been thinking about place and value is sort of through two different lenses, and I really want to stress that we will look at this through two different lenses based on what I'm about to say. So the first lens is sort of what we call form and infrastructure. So we've built a model, and I'll show you the results of this model for Laconia, which looks at about 70 different parameters of the built environment. So for example, it looks at all of your roads and your streets, and it looks at how wide they are. It looks at, do they have sidewalks or not? It looks at how many intersections and how connected are the roads. If you started over here and needed to get over here, how easy is it to get from one place to another? For parcels of land, it looks at how big is the parcel or how small is it? Is it oddly shaped? Is it perfectly shaped? Is it square? Is it rectangle? How much frontage does it have? For buildings, it looks at where's the building placed in terms of the setbacks? How big is the building? What's the floor area ratio? What's the volume of the building? How tall is it? How rectangular is the building? And then it compares all of those things for each parcel to its nearest neighbors, and it essentially says, this parcel is like these other ones in the city. Then it says this sort of area is the same, and it starts to group areas together based on the form and the built form. So it's a completely unbiased way through a data system of looking at your city to figure out like what parts of the city are like others. From that perspective, we can then say, okay, this type of form, let's say it's a very tight-knit neighborhood that has a mix of commercial and residential, and the form is very similar, is driving like a ton of tax value for some reason. People want to be here, the vacancy rates are really low, the rents are really high, home sale prices are really high. But there's another part of the city over here that has the same built form and it's not performing in the same way. We might say as a group, well, why is that? And we'll go out and try to figure out why that is, or help, with your help, figure out why that is. And then maybe we drive strategies to say, the public says, yeah, we love this place over here. Why isn't this place like that? They're the same. So we could start to have strategies that say, let's bring this place up and preserve this place that we love, or let's enhance it a little bit here and bring this place up that we love.
So you're encouraging higher rents?
No, I'm just saying, like, that was just one example.
Okay,
Yeah.
it sounded like it.
Yeah, it was just an example. On the other side, we have sort of this idea about identities and values, because one thing when I show you the map, you'll see why. What I don't want to go out into the public and say is, oh yeah, Lakeport and the Weirs are the same. Because they're going to show up the same on our map, because they have similar built form. But we know, like, from an identity perspective, they're not the same. So I don't want to ever go out in front of somebody and say they're the same. But there are things that we can learn from a built form perspective. If one of those areas is performing better than another, maybe there's things that they have in common. Maybe there's things that are very different where we might be able to learn from one or another. So the sort of identity and values is where I think we'd love to connect with you all and with the public to say, well, like, what is this place and why is it so important in Laconia? What happens here that, people relate to, so that we make sure that we are protecting the unique sort of value of that place from a more qualitative standpoint, or how people experience it, but we could potentially enhance it from like a physical standpoint through things like zoning changes or infrastructure. So just a couple of maps that we've started to put together to look at like where Laconia is actually driving higher value from a quantitative standpoint. So what we did was we mapped all the roads, and I don't know if it's hard to see on the screen, but we mapped all the roads. The darker the color, so the darker the red, the more well-connected those roads are, and the easier it is if you're on one of those roads to reach a lot of other points in Laconia. The lighter the color, as you get more toward the purple, the less connected those roads are. So you'll see a lot of like neighborhood streets, cul-de-sacs or dead ends would be your purples, and your major roads that are connecting east-west and particularly north-south are those sort of red roads that are very well connected. What we've seen in some of our research, particularly as it comes to like commercial development, Connectivity and transportation and visibility is really important for those kinds of businesses. So as we're thinking about where we might want to enhance over time, thinking about the roadway network and connectivity and visibility becomes really important to driving value. We also wanted to look at, where are some of the most valuable from a tax and assessed value perspective places in Laconia. The darker the parcels on this map, the more value per acre those areas are generating. We looked at it on a value per acre rather than just a total assessed value on a parcel, because if we looked at it on total assessed value, sometimes like a large office building might be generating $1 million a year in taxes, whereas a small neighborhood, it would take a lot of that small neighborhood to generate that in a total dollar. But when you look at it on a per acre, you can see areas along the water are really high, right? You have high value real estate there on relatively small parcels, particularly in the older parts of Laconia. And then areas like Lakeport and downtown and the Weirs start to pop because you've got a pretty intensive pattern of development there where you do have a lot of buildings on particularly smaller parcels of land. So that's kind of why we look at it from that perspective. And then when we layer the two on top of each other, not much to my surprise, I suppose, is a lot of the places that are very well connected from a transportation perspective are also some of your highest value locations across the city. So just sort of showing that there is a tie between infrastructure and development patterns and actual dollar value to the city. So something we may want to think about as we're thinking about future areas to develop, maybe how we zone or rezone areas if we're trying to encourage a different type of development. So where is that zoning and those land use patterns and infrastructure patterns really driving value in Laconia? The other thing that we noticed too was we mapped where all different uses are. We used CoStar, which is sort of a third-party real estate market software that we use, and they track properties, millions of properties all over the U.S. These are the properties that they track here in Laconia, represented by each of these dots. The color of the dots represents the type of use that is in there, from multifamily, yellow, hospitality, which would be like hotels, motels, office, retail, industrial, and healthcare. And what I also noticed here was some of the areas that had the highest values in Laconia are also ones that support the greatest mixture of uses, where people can actually go somewhere and do a lot of different things, rather than I'm just going to go to this office park and work and then I'm going to come back home. You see places like Lakeport or the Weirs or downtown or some of the corridors around Laconia actually have a pretty diverse set of uses and sort of driving a lot of value, right? Like people can go there and they can do a bunch of different things, which I think is really good. Sort of going back to the conversation around downtown, could someone live in a vacant, second or third story as it is now, then be able to walk to a lot of different things in downtown and be on the river or have water views? Like that drives value. So one of the things we then sort of shifted into is okay, how do you sort of capitalize and understand the value and capitalize it? So that model that I talked about that we built that looks at every building and parcel in Laconia, and then it essentially creates groupings of similar places. This is that map, and I'll give you a take-home map so you can look at this in more detail. But hopefully you can see it from the colors. But there were a couple of and we came up with some names for these. If you want us to change them, we don't take any offense to it. It was just sort of like how we were thinking about them. So red is a lot of the stuff that's around downtown and around Lakeport and sort of around the Weirs. We call that kind of village gateway district. So you're not in the downtown yet, but you're coming into the downtown, sort of characterized by a mix of different uses as we saw before, much smaller parcels, much more, sort of tightly developed areas as you enter a commercial district. The sort of pink color is the kind of compact residential, which is as you're getting outside of a downtown or those gateway districts, you still have heavily residential, but it tends to be on smaller parcels. But it might be more of a neighborhood feel and might start to transition more into like single-family home neighborhoods. Then you kind of have the orange, which we call dispersed residential, which is a lot of the newer development, could be waterfront development, larger parcels, maybe newer homes or older homes that are larger, tend to be a little bit more expensive and are sort of spreading more toward the northern part of Laconia. Then we had to come up with something for the blues, which whereas the established waterfront districts, which was really more like the old summer camps that have now kind of transitioned over time. They're more up by the weirs in that area, as you see. And then we have, I thought, the most interesting one, which we call large footprint workplaces. I'm not super happy with that one. I think we need to massage it. But the interesting thing with that is if you can see it, and it's more so on the inset on the bottom right, downtown was sort of labeled in our model as that brown large footprint workplaces.
Eric, they do have the homework.
Oh, they
I
do.
think they get passed out to everybody. So if you flip from the
okay.
first page, just if they want to
Oh,
look at what
great.
you're talking about.
Perfect.
It's on the inside of the first
Yeah, in case it's
page,
hard to see.
the place types map.
Yeah, thanks, Steve.
Yeah.
It was really interesting.
I
The
don't have a
model
packet.
sort of talked about.
Here, you can have mine.
Yeah.
I'll have Eric's.
It gave it the same categorization as like commercial and industrial parks in Laconia. And
Say
I-
that one more time.
Yeah, I
because
looked.
It hit me really hard.
Yeah, I looked at it multiple times. I'm like, this can't be right. It called downtown the same thing from a physical development standpoint as like industrial parks around Laconia, and it's purely based on the road network and the size and shapes of the buildings. Like you tend to have very long, bulky blocks in downtown, and that's kind of what you have in your industrial parks, as you would think, right? A building on a piece of land. And I don't know. I just found that really fascinating.
I think a lot of this might coincide with, the urban renewal that went on
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
the 50s and 60s. Just the size of the buildings and the style of the buildings are different than everything else down there because
Yep.
it was intentionally done, right?
Yep.
In big contiguous parking lots,
Yeah.
which you don't always see. I know
Yeah.
parking's an issue, but you have these big contiguous parking lots.
Yeah. So for me, obviously, I'm not from here. We went on an excellent lengthy tour of Laconia, but, I don't know it as well as you do. So sort of running this, I thought it kind of helped me see like, all right, where are these different places in Laconia and which ones are similar to each other? And just in that downtown example, it was like, oh, holy cow, like this functions like from a physical standpoint, like an industrial park. And it made me question just, again, as someone who doesn't live here, like, is that the downtown environment that encourages, walkability and for people to be down there, or not, right? Mostly our historic New England downtowns are very different in character than that. And again, it may work perfectly well in Laconia. We may hear from the public, don't change a thing, but it was just something interesting that I thought was worth pointing out. So what we hope to do with this and some of the homework that Steve was talking about before is we would love to understand from your perspective in our next meeting in February, do these place types resonate with you, or are we just off base and maybe we should go in a different direction? I'm fine with that. Or is this a useful way to look at Laconia as we start to think about the future and potential strategies and recommendations that we want to make? Should we be thinking about these different areas instead of kind of thinking about the city as a whole? Obviously, we'll do some of that, but, are there strategies that we can do here? And then we would love for you to just spend a little bit of time thinking about each of these place types and what opportunities do you see in those place types, and certainly what challenges do you see there? So if you are thinking about downtown, for example, we heard a little bit about parking, there's potentially some zoning challenges, how do we reactivate upper stories? We would love to hear that from you in the February meeting, just so we can, kind of start those conversations. And then if you all agree, we'd love to try to figure out a way to do something like this with the public as well through an engagement session. I think, Steve and Crystal could talk about that.
Can I have a question?
Of course.
Like on the Village Gateway districts, there are some lots that do not have buildings on them, but I think they're all built out. For example, in this area, aren't those all built at this point?
Oh, yes, there are structures on those lots. I think they're not showing on the map.
All right, I just, yeah, all right, so I'm just wondering why they're not, in the eastern part of the Village Gateway off of, I don't even know what these streets are. But there are a number of empty lots there that I know there are houses on them, and I'm just wondering why they were left off on your map. I don't know. Does that make
Yeah.
sense? And show it.
In the data set that we used, if there wasn't a building footprint on that parcel, for some reason, I would have to go and look at the specific examples to see what the issue was there. But, if there wasn't a building structure, then it wouldn't get a color, because our model wouldn't read a vacant parcel.
But if they're not vacant,
Well, that's what I'm saying, there may be some reason why
Yeah,
our
that
data
would
set
be-
is missing a building footprint, so I would just need to go back and check that.
And if that's an issue that we can address, we're happy to address it. If it's an issue we can't, we should call it out so that people don't have the same observation you have and talk more about what we're learning from the data.
Yeah.
Which is really about patterns and places, and then thinking about what works here and how we understand Laconia now. Charlie, you look uncomfortable.
It's my back.
Oh, okay. It's not the maps? Okay.
He's a big
Well,
fan
I
of
see what you're saying,
data.
'cause I think some of that is.
I'm sorry it's bad.
probably- I bet you when they're doing their data set
What is he
is
talking about?
criteria, like these houses that are out here.
Yeah,
They're
those
not
are
showing on
all,
there.
yeah,
It's
those
just
are
like-
all off Highland Street, like Fairview and Lafayette.
But it might be based off of some of the
Pine
data
Street
points that they're
Extension.
looking at that are evaluating some of these things, that they might not be meeting some of those criteria. That's what
Opal
I'm
Lane,
thinking.
Emerald.
But
And Eric and Steve, can I point out this too, that this was just one facet of viewing these areas. There's a whole other facet of viewing like the value and the identity. So this is the data-driven aspect, but then there's also the value aspect as well.
Right.
And how people view the area.
Absolutely.
And
Yeah.
then how they're zoned, how much they
Right.
conform to zoning, like, there are lots of things we can continue to ask to say, like, if you like village gateways, and you tell us what the issues and opportunities are, then we know what else we can look into, and then we can help you craft the solutions to keep them the way you like them, or to enhance them in ways you think, maybe it's additional housing types should be allowed. Maybe there's some missing middle, smaller units to get at what we heard tonight. Maybe there's some good examples in one neighborhood that we don't see in another because the zoning doesn't allow it. Like, we can start to ask some of these questions and get you a finer grain of detail, I think, for your plan than we normally would be able to. That's why it's exciting to try this new tool, but to kind of take it slow and to all be thinking about it and asking questions, and that's why we didn't want to hit you with all of it in one meeting.
Yep, agreed. So yeah, I think as you look at this and think about these, do they resonate with you? Do you think that these this is a fine, we can make 3 categories of places and we can make 100. 5 felt pretty good when we looked at it, felt like it was representative of what we saw, but if you were like, I think it needs a 6th. Like, village gateway districts are too all-encompassing, there needs to be more, we could try to run it at 6, or we could run it at 7 and see, I don't wanna go too crazy, cause trying to communicate that back to the public can be challenging, but, we're looking for feedback like that, which would be really helpful.
I guess I'm curious how the map compares to a map if you would just look at it based on the age the structures were built. Like, are we looking at something where the data is just basically highlighting the difference in building codes and ordinances as the city gets built out, right? Because if you look at the red district, I mean, those are
The oldest
The oldest
neighborhoods,
properties.
absolutely.
right. I guess I would just be curious how much is this data being driven by just that simple fact of the different types of structures built in different eras?
Yep. So the interesting thing, and I love that point, the interesting thing is we don't factor in building age at all into the metrics.
Right.
But when it comes to the built form, the stuff that people were building in 1920 is totally different than the orange stuff that people are building in 2020.
Right, I feel like the data's showing
And-
it to us anyway.
yeah.
I was just curious how closely it matches that.
Honestly, it's probably pretty close. And to a point somebody had made earlier about like, well, what if we had neighborhoods that allowed for more diversity of building types or uses rather? Like, why can't we have a commercial small store next to a 2-family, next to a single family, next to a 3-family? that probably is the red, right? If you wanted to replicate that style, that typology of development in an area that's primarily orange today, I assume you probably couldn't do that. So those are the kinds of conversations that I think we would love to have with you all and say like, do you like red? Is that the future of parts of the city? Do we need more red? Because it helps us accomplish housing diversity, housing affordability, putting commercial closer to where people live, you know, whatever the reasons are. Okay, we do like more red, great. Let's
I'm not
dive
sure
in.
we could build more vintage houses.
Yeah, yeah, it might not be a, you know, craftsman style cottage, but,
But you could emulate the pattern.
yeah.
If you had the infrastructure.
Yeah, you essentially emulate the form, not necessarily the exact architectural style, but the
Right.
form, you know. So that's kind of what we're trying to get as like, what, like, do people like certain aspects about these different areas? What are they? And, you know, are they worth exploring, replicating elsewhere, or preserving them over time?
I think I'd also be curious to see this compared to our zoning map.
Right.
Because I mean, that would tell us how our zones reflect what's actually there, and is it working, or were the zones put in place after all this stuff was there?
Yeah,
That kind of thing.
so,
Probably a lot, it was.
yeah,
Because remember, these village districts, many of these existed before Laconia was even incorporated as a town.
yeah, and probably pre-zoning.
Oh, yeah.
Sure. They never heard of zoning.
Right.
I'm talking about the late 1880s and stuff.
Yeah,
You know,
yep.
and that's when Lakeport was a developed area.
And years ago, actually, the downtown area that's on there was, I think, 7 different zoning districts.
Right. Before the current
Before
district.
what it's currently zoned
Yeah.
as. And I think where you have the industrial areas on there would also reflect that in what it was previously zoned was.
Right.
I think there was a business core, business, commercial, industrial.
Right.
And there was
BCI.
professional, and there was a couple other ones, and I think that
History.
map really indicates what those historical uses used to be.
Yeah. But I think to your point too, because it is surprising to see that the downtown looks and mirrors the industrial sector, but also to the point of when those buildings were built. Some of them were built during urban renewal, no doubt, but there are still a lot of buildings downtown that were constructed when manufacturers were here.
Yeah.
And so are gonna be reflective of that.
Yeah, and
With-
they're
they've
gonna
just
have
been
that longer
converted.
block structure,
Right.
much longer building typologies, yeah,
Right.
totally.
How do you define village gateway? Can you give us your definition of that?
Yeah, in the homework packet, we wrote up just like a quick paragraph blob, about blurb
I'm
about
sorry.
each of them. Which hopefully gives you like at least our sense of the place, from the modeling perspective.
I think in the homework packet also, you included an image or a map image for both the definitions and for the opportunities and challenges, but it's just one. I mean, we could probably send this out, so if they want to like zoom in, like send the PDF out.
Oh, yeah,
So that if you want to zoom in and play around a little bit more, don't be limited by the image you have there. Feel free to look at the citywide map.
Yeah, yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah. Spend as much time as you want on this over the next few weeks.
Yeah,
I mean, you're helping, I mean, we're still early on in the planning process, but you're helping us take a deeper look than we normally can, and you're also helping us, that's why we want to be as flexible to your ideas and the things you want to look at. You're helping us fine tune this so that we can use it effectively with the public and then use it effectively to inform your plan. We don't have to worry about the questions we're going to ask the public or how we're going to, what terms we're going to use yet. We want to make sure that some of this is resonating with you, the information we're gleaning is valuable, and at least starts to get us asking questions.
yeah.
And I think to Eric's point too, that, you know, having the zoning map as well, so that way they can see, because I know I'm looking at this here, and I see the zoning map all the time, so I'm like, oh yeah, the red, that's clearly mostly RG and UC, and then, you know, you get the orange, that's mostly RR1 and RR2, and, you know, so it would be helpful to see, and that's how, it's interesting, because Rob and I talk about this all the time when it comes to zoning, when we look at the areas, should the area be telling us what we want? Like the zone should be help guiding us to what we want, or should it be telling us to preserve what we have? And that's kind of the push and pull of the zoning districts. And so some of these, you're seeing, I think the zones were created to preserve what was there, and then there are other zones, especially when you look like performance zoning, to kind of promote different things. And So I think that's gonna be a big question that comes up through this process too.
We're working on sort of a sister model to this, which will take Laconia's zoning code, all the dimensional requirements for buildings and requirements for parcel sizes, frontage, everything like that, and run all these parcels and buildings that we have on here through that model. And essentially, that model will tell us which buildings and parcels conform to the way the zoning is written today and which ones do not. So again, if you're thinking about more of a rezoning project down the line, that model would be able to tell you, okay, in the compact residential fabric, you say your minimum lot size is 8,000 square feet, they're all 4,000 square feet. Why is that? Why did you zone it that way? I mean, that's not a question for you, but, why did you zone it that way? Or your height, your minimum height is 30 feet, all your buildings are 40 feet. So it at least gives the public, who, in my experience, are often most resistant to change. That may not be the case in Laconia. I hope it's not for your sake, but in many communities we work in, it is. It gives like some ammunition to planning boards and the staff and city councils to say like, actually, this is the existing condition. We're just trying to codify what's on the ground today.
I think some of us aren't gonna be surprised by how lit up that map of non-conforming properties is, but I'm sure some people, it's information that they've never thought about.
Right.
Yeah.
I have to keep in mind that many of these lots in those urban districts right now were developed, as Gary was saying, 100-plus years ago.
Right.
And many of them are laid out with 25-foot wide lots, and people would buy 1 or 2 lots, and they would build whatever building they wanted on that. And so when zoning came in the 50s, and they said, well, we want 80-foot lots, that was looking forward. And so, I mean, we have such a combination of ages of structures and lots that it's not necessarily what we look at here will ever fit here. It just can't because of the way it was developed.
Well, to redevelop it would require consolidation of lots.
Correct.
Yeah.
I think it'd be kind of interesting to see a map with the age of the structure.
We could probably drive around, say, 1920, 1910, 1930, 1960, architectural styles.
Yeah.
A good giveaway
do
for
that.
it in many cases. My first lot was 3 rods by 5 rods. That's how it read in the deed.
Yeah, I think to your point, Pat, if there's a building form, if there's a pattern like you just talked about that you like, you don't want the zoning to destroy it.
Right.
And you don't want the zoning to stop the type of development you're thinking you want to get, or you're thinking that would be appropriate for an area. So that's part of this. It does, at the end of the day, you might say the zoning's actually doing what it's supposed to do.
But at the same time, we might say, these were initially, 25 or 50-foot wide lots. Maybe we ought to maintain that rather than trying to shoehorn new requirements on that and recognize that existing structure.
You mean to make more intensive regulations?
It
Oh,
may
yeah,
be, that's right.
I agree.
I know we've talked about form-based code with, I know, a few of you on different boards at different times, but, one of the things that I think that explores, because right now we have minimum setbacks, but there's this, when you look at a form-based code, sometimes, you want your buildings to be closer to the road to maintain that character, so you have a maximum setback that you can only go so far back off the property. I'm not saying that's something we have to implement everywhere, but there are options now that just weren't even conceived of back then because they were looking for a different future than what I think we ended up with and where we want to go now.
And sidewalks were a standard
Right.
development thing.
That's because everybody walked everywhere at the time.
Well, that's right.
They walked to the local market.
But
They
if you
walked
look
to
at-
church. They walked to work.
In the 60s and 70s, they said, well, we don't want these sidewalks. We want to keep these rural areas. And now they're all developed, like where we live, no sidewalks. And we say, what were they thinking? We should have had sidewalks everywhere.
They should have been thinking
Hindsight's always
sidewalks-
20/20.
Sidewalks require maintenance.
Well, that's right.
And that's another part of the pie that,
Sidewalks,
Well,
what?
they require maintenance.
Yeah.
You gotta clear them in the
Also-
wintertime, you've gotta make sure that they're not potholed, and that became an ongoing public works issue.
There's areas of the city where no matter what development or remodeling happens, it's gonna cause zoning variances because everything is not conforming. Right, like areas near Wares Beach or whatever, where it's all packed in there.
Oh, yeah.
Every time someone wants to do something, it's a series of variances.
Right.
Maybe there's a way of approaching those neighborhoods that, I mean, I know I'm biased because I have to sit through these on the zoning
Well-
board, but
I represented many clients with those up at the, in the Centenary Avenue areas where these lots they were campgrounds. And
right.
now they're separate lots and there are houses on them. And, if there's 2 feet between the lot line and the building, that's a lot of space.
Yeah, they have to step on the neighbor's land to paint the outside of the house.
Exactly.
I feel like there's some opportunity to maybe clean up some red tape on those areas.
Well, to save a lot of effort, right.
Right.
I think
What do you mean
that's a
clean
really
up
good
red
point.
tape?
Well, if someone buys one of those structures and it's not in great shape and they want to build something new there, they have to go through a whole dog and pony show to get that to happen, when in reality, it's probably gonna get approved because it's better than what's there, and then what's there doesn't conform
It
to,
may well be, but the properties are so tight up there, that's the other side of the fence there, and may not be as easy even, I mean, the red tape, you gotta think about those other property owners.
Well, it depends on.
sure, but
Well,
we don't, I'm not saying that we allow it to get worse than it already is, but it should be easier for people to remodel and keep it the same as it is.
Okay, I'll buy
Right?
that. Yeah, that makes sense.
keep the same footprint.
I get that. It's
Right.
just, the same footprint is not expecting somebody to have you've got a 2-story house, they've got a 2-story thing, and all of a sudden, somebody's gonna put a 5-story building there.
Well, no, right. I mean,
That's what I'm talking. It's technically the same footprint. Correct me if I'm wrong, Rob, but I think the footprint is,
that's just the land that it takes up.
right, but it's just,
And they put a patio on the porch.
yeah, that's fine. That's fine.
I mean, there
I know
are all
what you're
sorts of
saying.
things, but I think Eric's onto something here, and I think that is something that we ought to be thinking about. Let's take a look at how the zoning actually impacts these properties. And, is that what we want to be doing, is to make it more difficult?
As long as you're thinking of the current property owners, that's fine.
Well, you have to think of both the owner of the person who wants to do something as well. They have,
But when you buy that property,
Right.
you know what you're surrounded with. You can't go in there with a bulldozer because all of a sudden,
Right.
we're saying, oh, well, we wanna make it as easy as we can for you. As long as, that's great, as long as you're respecting the properties around you, what's there, so you're not gonna adversely affect them. That's very important, and that's half the problems you get at the zoning board of, appeals and all that stuff. That's where this comes from. I get it.
well,
And sometimes the neighbors are reasonable, and sometimes they're not reasonable in their demands, and I get that too.
And that's not even the end of the problems, because if a couple of people do that and they improve the buildings, what happens to the other neighboring houses?
The taxes go up.
And the taxes go up, so.
Well, that's another whole issue, that,
Yes, it is.
yeah, but that's,
We don't have to talk about that.
Well, I mean, it's
That's
not-
reality.
and we really don't have
That is
control over that
reality.
either.
Yep.
I mean,
that
that's-
sounds like more of a state thing, I think, but I'm not really sure.
But, okay, so, so can you give me an idea as to what you have in mind as far as opportunities and challenges, so that we're at least thinking along the same lines?
Sure, yeah, no, great question. So, from an opportunity standpoint, it could be, there's a lot of vacancy in this part of town, but there's an opportunity to transform that into something else because these buildings are underutilized, but we see a future that's X, Y, and Z. That could also be a challenge too. Nobody wants to invest here because they think everything's vacant and there's no market here, right? So that could be a challenge. Our challenge could be, well, if we're looking at the dispersed residential edge areas that are kind of more toward the northerly parts of the city. Like I know in speaking with like DPW, for example, like the more sidewalks and utilities and things we extend up that way, the more costs they have and the more they have to maintain. If they have to plow the sidewalks, they might actually have to buy another sidewalk plow and leave it up there, because otherwise they gotta transport it back and forth all the time. So that could be a potential challenge to dispersed patterns of development versus keeping, maybe some new development tighter where the infrastructure already exists. So it's kind of things like that. Maybe in, the Weirs, for example, maybe there's business types that are missing there where you think there's a great opportunity to, encourage something else that people would love to see there that isn't there. And a challenge to that could be, well, the reason it's not there is X, Y, and Z, if that makes sense. So we'd love to just start like seeding some of those thoughts in conversation, because I'm sure if you all are thinking about those, we'll probably hear them from residents as well as other ideas. So just be great to kind of prep our team for what we might end up hearing as we start the public outreach process.
Are you thinking that everyone brings it back with them, or do you want them to get it to Tyler ahead of time?
I would love it if you brought it. I don't have a need to see it ahead
Okay.
of time.
Yeah, I just
I
wanted to
thought
be
we could
clear.
just go through each district. You don't have to write a novel for each of these. Just a couple of ideas. And then I would love to collect them so that,
After,
whatever
yeah.
we don't get to, 'cause we probably won't get to every single person's every thought.
That's fair.
Yeah, it'd be great to just keep that, so we can reflect on that.
Yep.
We could send them to Tyler.
Or bring them to the next meeting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it sounds like you don't feel if you identify a problem, you have to solve it. You know what I
If you
mean?
can, that's great.
You can just identify.
Yeah, get extra credit.
Extra points.
Yeah, give all solutions to Rob and he'll hand those in.
If you have the good solution, I'll present it to council for you, no problem.
Great.
Was this helpful? Was it interesting?
It's very interesting.
It's interesting.
Okay. We're pretty excited about it. I mean, we may be just geeking out over planning stuff, but I think we get the staff excited when we are looking at it together
Yeah,
too.
for
Because you
sure.
start thinking about all the questions you can ask and the insights you can gain and how can this be useful, both with reaching out to the public, but even later on, we say, okay, what's this plan gonna say? And what are some of the things you may need to dig into later on too, after the plan's done?
Yep.
But this will give you a lot of data.
One question I had on the land use, we have a lot of property that's owned by the state of New Hampshire. And is that included in this 12% of,
Yeah, the existing land use.
or is
I
it?
believe it was.
It should be.
Yeah.
Yeah, it should be. It depends sort of how it's being used.
Well, most of it's open space.
Yeah.
Or woodland.
Yep. That's more in the northerly
Yeah,
parts
as
of
well
town.
as state,
of the
it
city.
includes state and federal owned parcels.
right.
Yep.
In the 12%?
Yep.
Most of the 12%. We spent a lot of time mostly focusing in on housing type issues. What about other land uses? It occurs to me that when we opened up early on, we talked about, how do we get people to move here? Because we need housing. Well, we need housing, we need work, and we need things to do. So we need to provide for all of those kinds of opportunities. So that when we're thinking about how do we encourage stuff in redevelopment or new development, it's not just about housing. That's what's everybody's forefront. But, and maybe if we get the housing, that would help with the work problem, but then they still want stuff to do. Because there's not always a lot of stuff to do.
I think having those questions float out there while we go through these exercises is helpful. Because, I mean, clearly some of the areas that Eric just showed you can't check all three of those boxes. Some can check it really well for existing units. Some may have deficiencies, and some could be improved, maybe with some more housing or more jobs or more things to do.
They don't all have to be walkable.
True.
The ones that are good, that can do all three, but at least if they have two, or it's a short distance to the third thing, yeah, so.
And clearly, people are moving around the city. They're going to different places for different things. They may be getting those needs met. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a great question.
Just have a comment, I guess, on the master plan in general. I think it's important that we have achievable goals at the end of this, and we have a way of benchmarking this, because, I mean, for the effort and money we're putting into this, we need to get our mileage out of this master plan for the next 10 years, right? So it'd be good if we had benchmarks in there so that we know if we're targeting things, are we close? Are we hitting it? Are we on track? Are we way off track? Right?
Yep.
And if we identify a problem, we should have a strategy on how we plan on addressing it. It should just not be a complaint list, because that would be pretty easy to do.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how our last master plan reads a little bit.
Yeah.
Um,
And I couldn't agree with you more. In fact, I agree with you so much that when we did the contract and the RFP, not only did I request an implementation chapter, but then I put implementation at the end of all the other chapters too.
Gotcha.
So I wanted to really hammer that home, that this isn't just gonna be a document. Oh, we did this, great, put it on the shelf.
Exactly, I don't want it to
We need a
collect
roadmap.
dust, you know,
Yeah.
it's something that we need to refer back to and have clear goals and benchmarks and,
Yep.
you know. At the end of,
Absolutely.
when it's outlived its usefulness, we need to grade ourselves as a city on how we did. You know, we planned something, did we execute it, right?
Yeah.
Well, I think we also need to get people like who are on the zoning board to understand what some of that means. Because I know there's a provision in our zoning ordinance that encourages infill, and yet I've had a number of times when I've tried to do that at places, and the zoning board has said, no. So there has to be a commitment to that as well. So I agree with your implementation, but there needs to be an acceptance of it.
Some people tell me the zoning board says yes to everything, and now someone's telling me they're
Well,
saying no
it-
too much, you just can't win.
Maybe it's a
I
change.
think that's the nature of the
I just-
zoning board.
I just know I had a lot of not so pleasant experiences sometimes
See, yeah.
on behalf of clients. So.
Well, that's just because you picked the wrong clients.
My clients are always the best.
I see.
That's why I never.
Do you have anything else you want to ask?
No, no, I'm good. Thank you.
Thank you, Eric. That was great.
Thanks. Thank you, Eric.
All right, so moving on to the third item of tonight.
Yeah.
Crystal's just going to give us an overview of the outreach and engagement activities. There's a variety of activities and kind of how we're scaffolding them over the next couple months.
Yeah, so we created this kind of outreach schedule. Not sure if it was included in your packets.
It was not, so, but we will get that out.
Okay, is there a way to screen share it maybe? I mean, I'm not gonna go.
We'll
in
just
on-
send it.
You'll send it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Don't scurry to do it now.
All right.
I'm not gonna go in super detail about it. I'll talk about it at a high level, but basically, we really wanted to zero in on outreach and what that's gonna look like from now until June. The biggest takeaway is the 3 forums that we discussed, one in downtown, one in Lakeport, and one in Weirs in May of this year. We really want to flesh out some dates and locations of those, because once we get those fleshed out, we're able to create save the dates announcements that we can put, you know, a PR article in with Laconia Daily Sun and others. We can get flyers around the community. And then we can also create an actual event flyer, so save the date, then the event's coming, just to have it be fresh material, but also different ways that people are seeing these events, and that they're able to attend all 3 or just one, or however they want to participate. Those 3 events, we also plan on having them be an online version, so if people can't attend them in person, they'll also be able to go online and answer the same questions, see the same graphics and posters and maps that are featured at those, which we don't know what those materials are going to look like yet, which is why we're talking about the existing conditions report today, because that will help inform drafting the outreach materials and fleshing out really what we are going to ask the public. So also getting there, some other methods would be kind of pinging your existing, you know, city boards and commissions by giving them like we call it a first 5-minute announcement. So just asking your boards and commissions at the beginning of their standing meetings to just announce like, hey, these events are happening in town, just so that there are members of the public that may be tuned into those specific groups and committees that would be able to hear it. One question I also have for you guys is we have on here tabling and focus groups. And we're really looking for interest from you guys as volunteers and from staff to kind of spearhead that. We know there was talk about having focus groups or going to people at the community college or talking to the houseless population. And we just wanted to see if there's interest, volunteer interest in you guys being able to do that. Also reaching out with partner organizations, like your local, you know, Rotary groups and commissions and such. But basically, we wanted to create this just so that we can have a timeline of like going forward when we want to get things out, and then when we want to engage the public. One of the other things that we wanted to pitch to you guys was doing a photo contest. So sharing that with the public, to basically put out a submission request to the public to submit photos of Laconia. And we're thinking of maybe photos showing 3 categories, maybe the built environment, the natural environment, and some social or cultural like events or community gatherings as a way to engage the public to, in a different way, to want to be able to, let me see, like provide information in their own lens of how they see the city. So we're hoping that if, it'll also kind of stir up some, you know, incentive and interest, that if there is a photo contest, maybe we can have a prize per 3 categories and what that would look like. So we just wanted to pitch that out to you guys. And I know I just threw a lot at you. We also wanted to point out who's the responsible parties for these. So we try and point out, okay, us as consultants are responsible for creating the materials and obviously being there at the forums and doing the online tool, but also pulling in staff and you guys as a committee too that would take lead on some things.
Yeah,
Do you have anything to add?
The one area that Crystal highlighted that we can make materials, but we're not gonna staff, would be if you wanna do that tabling, or you wanna have a focus group with a specific population. So if you wanna go to Lakes Region Community College and table, and then meet with a group of students, we will give you whatever you need for the tabling. And we would even help set it up if you need to connect with somebody there. But we just don't wanna use your budget for that if we can leverage your time a little bit and stretch your budget further. That's the only reason. And we wouldn't restrict you to 2, but those were just 2 that we recalled us talking about. Sometimes there's a subset of the group, or there are other partners who like to get out and help get the word out.
I know there's another agency that's looking to do some surveying of the population in Laconia on different matters. I will find out a little bit more about that and get that
Okay.
to you, because maybe whatever they're looking for, we can coordinate with what you're looking for, and maybe we share some of that effort.
That'd be great.
If they get data that would be helpful to us, and vice versa, I think that would be good.
Yeah.
So I will follow up on that, what you said.
So that would be really good. The photo contest, to be fully transparent too, one of the hardest things is to get really good, unique photos that tell the story of the plan. Like at the end, we're like scrambling for photos, like who knows a photographer? What photos do we have? Then we're like critiquing each other's photos. So we're trying to get ahead of it with you. And I know there are a lot of really beautiful places, and knowing that we have the seasonal change coming up, that we can capture some kind of winter, spring, and even kind of early summer photos, would be nice. And it may get someone's attention where they hear meeting, or they hear maps, and like they're just not connecting with it, but they hear like photo contest, and like, what's this about? We're hoping that the way this is laid out, with basically 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, kind of like 8 different paths that you're gonna see starting to roll out over the next couple months, you're gonna get a lot of people saying, what is this thing that's going on? You know, hopefully, as a counselor, you'll be like hearing from different vantage points, or you'll be getting ideas, and you'll have materials you can say, oh, I'm gonna send this save the date to this group, or tell us, and we'll help the staff get it out. So, planning ahead.
I'm just thinking, you know, rather than just a photo contest, you know,
Yeah.
maybe a multimedia type of a thing too, because if somebody puts a video together that captures a lot of these things that we're doing, that might be very helpful as well. And I know we have a lot of talented artists in town too, who could do some different things, so, I mean, I think,
Okay.
okay, just
Yeah, we'll see what we can do. All right, so we'll circulate that. We're gonna come back to this, but we're gonna work with staff between this meeting and the next to actually add some of these dates and get more detail to this. So it's gonna be a recurring theme, but each time you're gonna see some draft materials You're gonna hear dates, you're gonna be asked to put stuff in your calendar to maybe attend one of these. And we'll slowly build out the details of this. Okay. The last thing I had was to make sure that we have the meeting date correct for next time. And I just put that here. So I had it down as the 12th of February?
I believe that's what we had discussed in our
Yeah.
internal meeting as
Yeah.
a potential date.
I think this one just got bumped back because of holidays and all that.
Correct.
But if the 12th still works for everybody, it works great for us. I think it actually works nicely with the homework assignment and another look at existing conditions, because it's not so far out that you just forget about us.
February 12th.
You'd be like, wow, we're already meeting in like 2 weeks.
2 weeks.
So it's helpful because by the time, if the 12th works, you know we're going to have part 2 of the conversation with Eric. You know we're going to talk a little bit more about additional insights you may have about existing conditions, or at least acknowledge that we've received your edits and we're working on them. We'll also have more detail on the outreach plan, the details, and we'll start putting together draft materials, what that looks like. The March meeting, we need to give you a pretty clear idea of what we're thinking we're gonna be sharing, at least big picture, like here's the level of detail we wanna share with the public at the forum that you also see in the online tool. We can work on the detail and have some proofing done with staff's help, we're lucky there, but we wanna make sure that you endorse kind of the general approach, and you can tell us like, that's too much, or no, they can take more, give them more. So, and then we have April to come back and check in one more time, before the show hits the road.
Do we have a March date?
We, probably if it's the same standing meeting.
March 12th?
I don't think we set a date yet for March. February 12th would be the next meeting date. For March,
How about March 12th?
Yeah, sure. That's 4 weeks after that one.
Does that work?
Works for me. You may be remote, but
That's Thursday.
we'll figure it out.
yes, but I believe that's a tentative hold for community power right now. So I don't have to be here for this meeting.
Could we just move it to the next Thursday, do the 19th,
March 19th?
March 19th?
Yeah, I'm
That
unavailable.
also
Okay.
works. I believe.
Available, you're unavailable on the 19th?
Both the 26th, if you want to hold it till Thursdays.
Well, yeah.
Or,
I want to talk about the committee meeting outside of the meetings with RKG, to discuss some of these things, because I think there's a lot happening here, and I think, from my perspective, having the committee talk among themselves about some of these things helps prepare for the next meeting with RKG.
Totally agree. We're gonna use their time to our maximum benefit.
Correct, that's exactly what I had. in mind.
Exactly.
All right,
We
so
should
you
be talking
backing
about
back
this
up?
in between meetings.
Pardon me?
Are you backing back up? The beginning of sometime like March 12th?
Oh, yeah.
Well, no, yeah,
They
well,
changed
sometime,
topics slightly.
if we're gonna meet on February 12th, we've got,
So how about March
Four.
12th? We just all get together on March
well, we
12th.
could do March 12th, but, I mean, Tyler can't be part of it, but,
That's fine.
but that, yeah.
This is just amongst ourselves we're talking right
Right.
now. So I'm putting out there March 12th to see if that works for everybody.
I think you're talking two different things.
No,
No.
I think Pat was talking about getting together between
that's what I'm,
February and March.
Yes, well, but,
no.
Charles,
If we're gonna have the
well,
other, somebody had already said March 26th.
what,
So-
Right, if we meet on the 12th, and we can meet with them on the 26th.
Right.
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 okay, so, all right, that would give us, all right, a month from our February 12th meeting. All of us will have a lot of data, we can look at it, we can meet as a committee, and then we meet with RKG on the 26th of March. Is that's what you're talking, Charlie?
Mhm.
So committee on March.
so you want to meet on March 12th and then March 26th as well?
Right.
And
March
March
26th.
12th would just be with us.
Right.
So it sounds like we'll meet February 12th, then you'll have a meeting without us, then we'll come back and meet again. And I mean, if you decide on February 12th that you don't need that meeting, at least you will have reserved it.
Right.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Okay.
Be at 6 o'clock on the 12th of March? Same time?
Right, I think, yeah,
Just
I'm
asking.
not making these decisions.
I mean,
This is-
I would, those dates don't necessarily work great for me, but, that's fine, I guess.
We can work it out, whatever we need to do.
Well, if they don't work for you,
I don't know, I guess the other thing I'm concerned with is on a staff end is now, do I have 3 meetings a week for staff members? And that's a lot.
goes into your overtime time.
Well,
Well, just pick a date, Rob, just let us know.
Yeah,
We'll be yakking all night about
but-
this.
I wouldn't mind if we did maybe, could we do, I don't know, the 5th and the 19th, I think would be
March
more.
5th?
March 5th and the 19th.
Let's do the 19th, which is a week before the 26th. And that'll be fresh for everybody.
So could we do the 19th and then we could do 26th then?
So we do March 5th?
No, we're gonna do the 19th and the 26th, so it'll be,
19th, we're gonna get together, Pat. And then the 26th is the meeting with the,
Well, I'm just wondering if we meet on the 5th,
I can't be here for that, so you guys can do it. It's okay, I just won't be in town.
you won't be in town on March 5th?
I won't either.
You won't be here, okay.
I won't be here the 19th.
I'll cover the parking.
Well, March 12th, I mean.
what about,
You can't do it March 12th, March 12th.
what if we did, what's people's availability for the 10th
Of March?
of March?
Tuesday.
It's a Tuesday.
I won't be here, but I don't need to be here. I'll be out of town for work, that's the only reason. I'll be getting back,
Planning board's the 3rd.
Yeah, planning board
CBA's
will be the 3rd.
Zoning board's the following week. I think there's a council meeting on that Monday,
Yep. On the 9th.
on the 9th. 'Cause that's the only thing I'm afraid of, overscheduling staff of meetings almost every single night of a
do we
a
need
week.
staff here for when we're just all getting together and talking?
The working meeting.
Somebody's gonna have to take
Someone,
minutes.
someone's
Do we have to have
gonna
minutes for
take
that?
minutes, and somebody's
And
gonna be here
post
to.
an agenda.
Pat can do minutes, he's pretty good at that.
We, how about we put a tentative date for March 10th at 6 PM? And if we need to change it, we can change it, but I think we put it in place now.
All right, so we want to do March 10th, and then we're going to do the 26th as well. So
Yep.
10 and 26.
March 10,
I reserve the right to complain about everything that's done on March 10th.
Perfect.
All right, so March 10th will be a work session for us. And we can get into some details, and then we'll
Yep.
give those details to them.
They'll be in the
That'd be great.
All right.
So just to review, one last time, February 12th will be the next meeting.
Yes.
Where they're gonna be in attendance. We're gonna have March 10th is gonna be the work group, and then March 26th we'll reconvene all together again.
Right.
Perfect.
That was easy.
Fantastic.
That only took 20
It's
minutes.
just that easy. Yeah.
And they-
So we're done with our portion. I know you have other stuff on the agenda, including public comment, so I wanted to make sure there was room.
Yeah.
No, I think that was good. So the only thing we had left on our agenda was to open it for the public. So if anybody from the public was here, they wanted to come up and comment or provide any input or have any questions for us to find out for them.
I know Mike Foot always has something to say.
This is your opportunity to speak.
Greetings, how are you doing? Mike Foot, 222 Roller Coaster Road. Good to see all you people here. I'm good to see this process moving forward again. Couple of the things that when I'm on the website and I'll go to hit the link, maybe it's just a sticky on my mouse, but it didn't go there, and I'm not so advanced that I'm using my phone for the QR code.
If you'd like, you could stop down in the office and we can do it on the iPad in the office.
Perfect, I just haven't been by.
Yeah, just stop down, we can help you out.
One of the things I hear, and I think nomenclature is important, and I hear residential commercial, which doesn't exist. I think maybe we get it mixed up with RG, because it's resort commercial. And I think just thinking of it that way makes it more open to have different opportunities for development. Certainly, in the Weirs, you could see mixed-use development and stuff like that. One of the things I would be cautious of is, because I've heard it from people who currently or have sat on planning before and zoning, is that zoning doesn't make a difference. We should collapse all the zoning and just let it go for what it is. But I think there's cautionary tale there in that some people there is an attraction for open spaces. There is an attraction for something to do. Certainly in RR1, we don't want to just slam a 100-unit business into an area that hasn't been previously developed like that. Certainly I see that from the roller coaster and the larger campground on White Oaks. And I would say that just because it can be brought forward because it's on the list of things that can be permitted, I think it's important for the zoning board to stand up at that point and listen to the people. So when it comes down to what is it that makes it not qualify, what are the 5 points? You know, kudos to Marcia for saying it will change the properties there. As we look at the Weirs and we look at the stuff that's going on in our development there in resort commercial, one of the things we've seen is a lot of development. Been encouraging of it myself. So when we look all the way from the road down from Meredith to Guilford, every one of those developments I've seen come along in the past 15 years. Now, one of the things, when someone comes in and says, oh, I'm right next to commercial resort, first thing I want to do is make myself into a short-term rental. I think there's caution on there. There is a reason for the zoning. And if they're coming from the outside just to buy up stock, one of the things we should be looking forward to is where does our community live? Now, certainly on roller coaster, 100 units of a campground is a horrible idea. But are 20 houses in there? Or some sort of development? Or something like that? Something's going to happen. And if something is reasonable like that, you may find that the neighbors are receptive, or there's other things that could happen as it moves along. But if you put in 100 units of camping, and I already live with all the campgrounds on the other side, I'm used to that stuff. But to put it right in the core of it, right where steep slopes are, right where your water flows are and everything like that, I think I would be not supportive of that. So when we look as we go forward, it'd be nice to have recreation there. I look at North Conway, but if you live in the Weirs, where are you going to go skiing? Well, you got to get in your car, you got to go to Gunstock, you got to go up to Waterville Valley, you got to go to Loon, you got to go to North Conway, but everything is outside of Laconia. I think there's a chance to develop more ideas on how to stay, you know, where's the value? Is it all in condos? And I would not want to save the best for last and put it on to cheap housing and God bots or whatever. I think there's something more that can be brought forward. And I just, as you guys go forward on that, I think there's the ability to have some of that develop when you ask for something to do, that those things could happen right in the Weirs and we wouldn't have to travel. Reduce our carbon footprint. Thank you, guys. I appreciate what you do.
Thank you
very
and
much.
Mike, stop down anytime if you want to use the iPad. We can help you get your input.
Yes, sir. It's just, you know, when you hit the button, I'm easier on the screen.
Stop on down. We'll help you out.
All right.
Anybody else?
I do, I'm Marjorie Wilkinson, and I am chairperson currently of the Heritage Commission, and also now serving on the Historic Overlay Commission as well. The reason I'm here is, I guess I have a question that I've kind of already asked. I'm learning.
That's
And this
great.
is like my 4th year, and I'm still learning a lot. And I'm trying to figure out what the coordination is between our community and how heritage, historic overlay, maybe possibly neighborhood heritage districts will fit in, and then how does it coordinate with both the zoning, the code enforcement, and planning? And I guess I don't know what the hierarchy is with, if something goes to zoning, it's rejected, then what happens? Does it go to planning eventually? Those are the processes that I need to learn. But that, I guess, is what I wonder how you, as the agent that's driving this, would coordinate that, or see if there is coordination.
So I think there are two things. I think you guys could probably better answer how it's handled today, and then when you're done, I'd like to make a pitch for how we can pull them in.
Yeah, so I know we've had some discussions before, and it is very complex. So when anybody applies for a demolition permit and buildings are over so much square feet and over a certain year, then they're required to go to
Code
the Heritage Commission.
Correct.
On the historic district side, there's only, I think, 4 parcels that are actually within the historic district. So if you're changing certain appearance things, or you're doing cosmetic changes to the building, nothing to do with the use, or you're looking to do an addition or demo a part or the entire structure, then it goes to the Historic District Commission. And you're going with an overall development plan at the same time you're going there. Then the commission is going to vote to approve, deny, or work with the developer to find out what their solution is to get that approval. And then, of course, the developer could appeal that and go to the zoning board, or eventually go to court. And then after that approval, however that ends up working out, it would go to planning board.
Okay, and I've sent some information to both
Yep,
you
yep,
and
we just figured,
Tyler.
you know, yep.
Right, I was at a workshop in Wolfboro with the Preservation and the New Hampshire Historic District Department. And so what came up was also what they called, and I think it was done, there was research and a study done in 2008, and it's done. There's only one community in New Hampshire, I think it's Stratham, that do Heritage District. And I think as I drive around Laconia and walk around Laconia, there are many places that are worth, when I say preservation, I'm not necessarily saying that it doesn't have to change, but what I am saying is there is cultural and historic value to some of these places. And we are facing, because we are solely, it seems that most right now, doing demolition permits. And it makes it very hard because we're, one, an advisory, which is fine, but to do the research, to bring that research up, we might, postpone a demolition 30 days, maybe 60. We can get up to 90. We haven't done that, but we did do some to have Preservation Alliance come and visit. Historical Society here in Laconia has been involved with some of that. But I think we have very many places where I watch the zoning for White Oaks Road. I think White Oaks Road is a rural area. I am disappointed every time I drive up White Oaks Road right now because I remember that rural area. I understand how those neighbors are feeling. I just watched the in between advertisements on YouTube, the zoning meeting that you had with White Oaks Road. I think that that might be an area that would fit this kind of a program. Because one, it's community-driven. And I think when we reacted and the historical district came about, was reaction to the St. Joseph's Church and the Preservation Society that got together. And they got together along with the, worried about a demolition of the church, and they wanted to preserve it. But it was a community involvement that postponed that. And that is where the heritage districts would come from, is from the communities themselves. So in zoning, I think it's done through zoning right now, but through zoning, do you think about the heritage and the historic value of that place, of that area? And there's so many areas. There are areas in Lakeport. There are areas right here downtown. There are areas on Pleasant Street. I think of North Street. I saw a beautiful place up there that's old. And we have a demolition coming up pretty soon, again, along a lake property. So it's a dilemma. And
Don't forget the weirs.
I'm looking, and yes, and I don't want to forget the weirs. No. We have the weirs as well, as you already have explained. So that's my concerns.
I can tell you, the easy answer is yes. We think about it. The more we can, if we can keep you all engaged, and as we start rolling out this outreach material through Tyler and Rob, get you these meeting announcements, get you materials and ways to provide feedback, that's helpful. The Strata example that you highlighted, I was on a panel with the folks from the Heritage Commission in Exeter a few months ago. And one of the things they did in a similar kind of rural setting to what you're talking about with White Oaks is because they had established it, because it was an expectation that the developer would at least meet with the Heritage District, they were able to preserve the farmhouse in the barn, even though development was happening behind. And they ended up moving the barn and rehabbing it and doing some things it otherwise would have just been demolished. And so there may be some case study examples that seem appropriate here with your input and the input of this group and the public that might start to give us some ideas for how to move forward and how to accomplish some of what you just outlined. So thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
If you don't mind, I would like to add, I think that there is a lot of concern over preserving some of these things as well, that there's a specific member of the planning board that is very passionate about it, and I have promised him that we'll have some discussion on it. And I think that we're also hoping that as we work through this master plan, some of these key findings that we identify as we'd like to preserve this or we'd like to do this is going to lead us to solutions that are going to be identified in this master plan and then become part of the implementation chapter so that we can have again, these goals to go to of, do we want to expand the historic district to do this? Do we want to have a form-based code to do this? Do we want to have option A to do this or option B or C to do this? And I think that those things will come out with this whole study that we're doing in this whole master plan so that as a community, we will have, this is where we want to go in the future. This is what we want to preserve. We want to have neighborhoods that are like this, for neighborhoods that are like this, or change this over here to preserve this. So I think that is all going to come out. I'm sure Steve will correct me if I'm wrong.
No,
but I think that's our whole purpose of doing this. And coming out to these meetings and providing the feedback is absolutely imperative. And I don't want to rush to making changes in the zoning ordinance now until we complete this whole journey and get to the end so that we know exactly the path forward. So I think with everybody's involvement, input, we'll get to that, and then we'll get our path forward to do whatever we want to do with all these commissions and boards, to bring them all together so we're all on the same path.
No, and I understand that, and I think that's why I was here tonight, is just because I wanted to express that there is some coordination among us all. And I think that's what you're doing, but that's why, so I thank you both.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, do you have an end in sight?
I just have one comment on that. I think it's something that's been discussed in council several times, is our historic preservation apparatus in the city, and I think a bunch of us on the council would kind of wish it had a little more teeth to it. But I guess we're probably pretty unclear on what we're allowed to do and not allowed to do. So is that something you would know about and could maybe bring to the council? So I think there would be some interest in knowing.
Counselor, I would love to bring any information you would like to the
Please?
Absolutely. Minutes, please. We can absolutely do that.
So I know I'm not the only one that would like to know what we can do about it.
So, we were at a meeting the other day with some counselors, and it was brought up that they would like to have a presentation at one of the council meetings in the near future that discussed what our zoning districts were, and I thought that probably going over some of those districts along with innovative land use controls that we have and some of the basic zoning things such as the Historic District Commission might be very good to go over. So we're kind of working on that already.
I'm not going to ask you to present things I could easily Google, just the things that.
But
So subtle,
we were trying to figure out, the appropriate amount of detail and the right data to give to council.
Right.
So,
Thank you.
actually, Tyler's working on some maps with our GIS person and at DPW, so we hopefully, I don't know how long it's gonna take, maybe, hopefully less than 2 weeks, so we're ready for the next council meeting, but that would be my goal.
Thanks.
You got it. Yes, Charlie?
What end, when you said at the end of this, do you have a,
At the end of our journey with the master plan.
right, do you have any idea when that end would be? What,
Yeah, I think that's gonna be this coming fall.
Yeah,
this coming early fall or late fall?
I'd say late fall.
Late fall. So my big concern, Mr. Chair, is anybody that puts a plan, a developer or something comes along, before these districts and what our last speaker talked about, as you know, we've had this discussion before. Once somebody says, this is what we want to do, and they put in that, whether it's a conceptual or just a application to the planning board, is it then too late to say, can we hold them off until this is done? Or can we not? And if we can't, then that becomes worrisome about what you were talking about preserving some of these areas that are not in our tiny little historical district overlay we have right now.
So, it's complex, right? We can't just stop everything right now. With that, in order to do a change to zoning, if you wanted to make some of these changes, we're talking about at least a month or two to write an ordinance or to make a change, and then you've got to bring it to the planning board, you've got to have your presentation, your public hearing,
Yeah.
and then you're going to city council for at least 2 meetings.
Yeah.
That's if they don't kick it back for any corrections or changes at their level.
Yeah.
Because if they do, that's adding another month or two to go
Okay.
back through. So even if everything went completely smooth and you wrote the most perfect ordinance to preserve or to make whatever change you wanted to do, it's still at least taking you 5 or 6 months. 5 or 6 months from now is still gonna bring us to almost the end of our master plan
But we
period.
get to the end of that master plan, then you still have to make
Yes.
those proposals, which could be another 5 months
But
out, correct?
on that, at least if we waited to the end of this, so we have, are we changing something now just to change something? Or are we changing something, but why are we changing it? And I
Well,
feel like if we wait till the master plan, we have the facts that lead us to making this change.
I think there's no, if I may, I don't think there's a shortage of support, whether it's on the council or certainly our residents, with regards to the historical district overlay thoughts, whether it's Lakeport or expanding it downtown or an area of Weirs Beach. I don't think that needs to wait till the end of the master plan. I don't think that needs to be stretched out to possibly the beginning of 2027. I think it's too important with some of the outside forces that are looking at areas within, especially at the Weirs, looking at areas to maybe grab, put an application in and say, well, here it is, and nothing you can do about it now because we got our application in, unless I'm missing something there. So we don't need to decide that right now, but I think that's a very worrisome situation we have here. I think this master plan is great. These guys are doing a great job, but to delay something like the historical district overlay, and say, well, let's wait and see how the master plan addresses it, and then we go out from there. And I hope the counselor is shaking his head in agreement with me over there, that,
You know, I'll be honest, I didn't agree with you at first, but you convinced me.
okay, I just, wow. I just think it's something we really need to look at seriously. And I'm not trying to, you know me, Rob, I'm not trying to overwhelm, or not overwhelm, to try to say to the planning department, oh, you're crazy. This is, I know you guys, you're very regimented in that you do the due process. I get that, that's your job. I get that, but this is, we've already lost a few areas in this town, buildings and stuff like that, that were very, very historical, and they were like, almost like landmarks for the city. And now we have parking lots, or that, by the way, just help a particular business and not a public parking area. And I just think I just don't think it's right. And I think, as a citizen of Laconia, I know I'm not alone in my feeling. And it's not just people my age that feel this way. I don't know what our age difference is, Eric, but Eric hears from the residents about this too. And we hear it. We don't hear it at city council meeting. We hear it when people come up to us and say, what the hell is going on? And that is exactly what I had to listen to at the Bank of New Hampshire yesterday afternoon, where a resident who lives up at the Weirs chewed me out as if the planning board was responsible for all this. And I mentioned this to Gary, I think this morning, didn't I? And I said, listen, there are more people than you know of that agree with you and that are working on this. So with all due respect to what we're doing here, I hope that we don't tie our hands with regards to a district overlay, historical district overlay for some of these very important areas. I just think potentially a year out is too long to wait. And that's just how I feel, and I think there's a lot of other people that feel that same way. And if it's something that should go to the council right away, I don't know, Eric, Counselor, I would look to you. Again,
Yeah.
I know these two guys here and their staff really work right to the bones with what they're doing, and I get that. And I'm not trying to jump anything. I don't think we are jumping anything, because we've been messing around with this for how many years now, Rob? Since you've come and gone, this has been going on. And I know there's a couple of people out in the audience here that have
I'm
been
sure it's
grinding
been
their
going
teeth
on
too.
since
5 years?
probably at least.
Yeah, at least 5 years.
And that's why I mentioned it, because I know
Yeah.
on the council it's come up, some of the situations you were describing, and we kind of look at each other like, is there anything we can do about this? And
Well,
we're always told like, well, the ordinance kind of gives you no power over
Yeah,
this whatsoever, so no.
Yeah.
So I'm just kind of curious, well, what can we change? What can we do? What
Well,
are
I
we
think-
allowed to do? If we start there, then we can craft something and get it in place.
And if I just may kind of add in, I think we need clear guidance on what the city wants to do. I was here when we adopted this, when I was the assistant planner, and it was created very specifically to preserve certain structures. And it is a very strongly written ordinance that protects a lot.
In a very small area.
In a very small
yes.
area. And then they proposed to expand that over the entire downtown area. And then you had all the business owners that came out that were downtown, they're like, well, you're taking my right to paint my building, to change my windows, to do any of the,
Yeah, and we've addressed that.
and then, then city council gave the direction that, yes, we would like to see it expand, but we would like to see the power curtailed a little bit, so they're not being overly restrictive on business owners.
Right.
Because that was the biggest concern.
That's correct.
I'm not buying
Additionally,
historic windows for my house.
Right.
additionally, there was residential structures of single-family homes that then were expanded into that district.
Right.
And there was concern on city council's end at that point that we were being overly restrictive now on specific single-family homes.
I get it. There's
2
there's
years
a,
ago.
There's a balance that we have to hit, I think.
And
Right.
absolutely, and I think there's a happy medium of where you
Yes.
get to, and I think that's nobody really knows where that's at. And I don't know if I want to
I
be
do, I
the,
can hit that balance.
Yeah, we do know where
Mr.
that is.
Chair,
We do
if
know
I
where
might,
that
out
is.
of respect to our consultants here,
Yeah.
I think that this is an important conversation, but
This is
it
good
should be
stuff.
continued later.
agreed.
Move to adjourn.
I got a motion to adjourn? Second. Second, all right, all in favor? Job done.
Eric,